Good, good, good.
Good. All right.
I just want to say that you're a wealth of knowledge and provide what you teach.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was trying to share, this, everyone started somewhere. I started in this business 22 years ago. So I was just a young buck with no knowledge whatsoever. And so we all started, right?
How I feel
I
right
would
now.
say, me too.
I feel so lost.
I think it's, if I were to give any agent, especially starting out in this industry, any advice, it would be to be
Come on,
growth
girl.
oriented and growth in. I see two ways of being, kind of there's learning based, right, which is awesome, right? People taking a bunch of information, they learn, they're seeking knowledge. And then there's growth based where you seek that knowledge, you take it in, but then you actually apply it, right? There's actually a really difference here with the growth base because it's all about getting uncomfortable. That's how we grow, that's how we get better. So just go out and try these things and give it a shot. And give it some time too, whatever you're learning and whatever you're doing, it's not gonna happen instant. What's funny is we live in a instant gratification world where this business is the late gratification, right? So what you're doing now shows up 30, 60, 90 days down the website. All right, so a little about me, kind of what shared 22 years, been doing real estate for the last, specifically real estate, nothing else for the last 10 or 12. Well, wow.
It's all blur.
Yeah, I don't remember yesterday, right? So, one of the things that as the market changed in 2021, who was in this business in 2021? Anybody? Yeah, okay, couple people. So those of you who weren't, they may know about the market back then. It was crazy after COVID, yeah. What had happened is the interest rates went sub 3%, right? Like I have 2.99 on my house. I'm never selling that thing, right? I don't care if I want a new house, I'm renting that thing out, it's free money. But what that did is if interest rates are that low, people essentially could buy a house for less than they were doing for rent. So it's awesome, right? Which was great because you could trip over a piece of business just walking down the hall here, right? Like you run into someone by my house or at the subway or whatever. So here's the thing though, is during that time, we received 15, 10, 15, 20 offers on the house. So we're like, okay, well, it reminded me of 2012, which was a lot of investor clients that came into the business, into our marketplace. One of the big ones, Blackstone, they came in as Invitation Homes. And so we were seeing 15, 20 offers at that point too. So kind of going back to that, I'm like, hey, how do we strengthen how we get offers accepted? And it was something I had to teach the team because it's such an important thing, especially when you have a buyer who's out looking at houses, they're super fired up, right? You just got them pre-approved. They're like, yes, I'm gonna own a home. And then you go and you compete and you, at that time, get them excited, they have an offer, and then you're like, hey, there's 15 other offers, right? How do we best position them to win? So I came up with a 33-point plan for our team. It's a list, a checklist. I have some of it up here. I didn't want to bore you with all of them, but if there was one thing today, I always like to ask this, that you want to take away from this, what is it? Michelle, what do you want to know? Make sure I can cover those things.
I would say, what is the one thing that you think works the most out of your 33?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll cover that. That's actually the next slide. Super good question. What else? Who submitted an offer in multiple offer situations?
Me.
You.
You did, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe touch on escalation clause?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. All right, let's jump into it. So I think a lot of it will get covered and then you guys can ask questions. So the first step, I just put it into an easy 3-step. There we go. No. All right, first thing, all right, number one. So I broke it down into agent to agent, right? So communication with the other agent is the absolute most important. So what's that look like? the first thing we're gonna do. Alright, so a lot of people think, hey, just text them, right? Well, that's not gonna work. I always text them and say, hey, I'll call them first, my process is call them up. Then if they don't answer, text them, hey, when you get a second, could you give me a call back, Jake? Why? Because it's so important that you actually talk to them, and there's a couple reasons why. And to start with, I want to build rapport with that agent, right? You'd be surprised at how many times I've gotten 10, 15, whatever amount of offers. I never heard from the agent. And I'm like, huh? Okay. And as a listing agent, I work heavily on listings, right? Well, what I would do is I would take that, and because they're not going to call me and tell me about their client, they're not going to come on, you're good.
Welcome, welcome.
The thing is I actually, when I have a good conversation with an agent, who I know is really improved or been dialed in, I've talked to the lender, things like that, I actually portray that to the seller when we're sitting there making a decision. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I call it sugar bump, right? Throw a little sugar bump on it, right? Wow, that's a great listing you have. We just saw it today, and I wanted to let you know that our clients are extremely interested in putting an offer, right? How'd you get that listing? Well, tell me about that listing. You do a lot of business in this area. Ask questions and get to know them, right? That's one of the biggest things in this business is relationships. There's been a ton of times that I've got my offer accepted. It wasn't the highest offer or the best net to the seller, but because of the agent knew that I would perform, I was able to get the offer accepted. Right? So that's the first thing. So next thing I would do is I just have a couple questions. What's your offer procedure for this one? That's my first question. What's your offer procedure for this one? A lot of times what you'll hear is, hey, we're gonna go through the weekend and we're gonna do offers on Monday. Okay, cool, right on. Next question I'm gonna ask them is, do you currently have any offers? If so, hey, congratulations, you're crushing it for your client. Great job on that, right? Give them another sugar lump, tell them they're doing a good job. And how many do you have? That's my next question. Because I want to know how many I'm going up against right now. And then I also tail that back up with how many are you expecting more? Right? Because I'll tell you if you're expecting. Yeah.
Can we access this slide after this?
Yeah, I'll send this to you. I'll send it to the front desk.
That's fine, just send it where you like.
Yeah, perfect. Then I ask, awesome, that's fantastic. So and through this process, I'm not just hammering with questions, I'm actually having conversation. I'm talking to them, I'm working on building rapport, things like that. Other than price, what's important to your seller? Everyone knows price is most important, right? They're gonna tell you price. Other than price, what's important to your seller? Why do you think I asked this?
County location,
What's that?
location.
Okay, it's a good thought, I like that, location.
Any
Who else?
facts, something like that.
What's that?
Often time frame, rent backs, that kind of thing is important.
Yeah, 100%. So what I'm trying to figure out is how can I craft an offer that's gonna, it has to make sense for my buyer, right? And I will share this with them. And a lot of this work is actually done in the scene or the buyer consultation. I want to craft an offer that works for my buyer, but also position the offer that best works for the seller, right? I've had situations where, again, coming back to those no calls, my client wanted an extended escrow, but they threw a 15-day close escrow on there, thinking that that's the best for the seller. Assumptions are killers of offers. Don't assume anything. Just ask the questions. Ask the agent what's important. What is it that they're trying to do? What's that look like? So how can we position this offer to be the strongest? It's another good question, right? How can I position this offer to be the strongest that you have? Sometimes I'm not going to tell you, but I a lot of times am able to get information. If you call me, right, most of the time you won't hear these answers, but about 98% of the agents out there will give up information. Okay. So first question I ask is, are any of the offers you have above asking? Right? Because I want to know where that is, where are the offers at? The next question, and I always do other answers. There's really an art to find this range out. What I do is I position it as a win for them and a win for us. Here's the thing. A listing agent who's giving multiple offers, guess what they have to do with those offers? They have to decipher, right? They have to go through them. I actually have an offer comparison sheet I use on every single offer that I come in, whether it's multiple or single. So I have to go through them, decipher them, pull out the main points, share with the seller how that's strong or not strong. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go into the next question is if they say yes, awesome work. So can you, I can tell that you worked hard on this listing. Your sellers must be stoked, right? Show another compliment there. Then I would say, would you share where your most competitive offer is at? I straight up ask them. A lot of times they'll share with you, right? A lot of times they'll say, we're at 20,000 above asking. We're at $10,000 above asking. But you have those really good agents, smart, the ones that don't share, right? Because I don't share that information. If someone calls me up, because I want them to have I always tell my buyers this, and my sellers, all we need is 2 offers. Because the fear of missing out is so much stronger than not even putting the offer in. There's just a psychology about it when you're in competition. That's why auctions work so well, right? I go to Barrett Jackson, I go to car shows every year. It's insane and I love it, but that psychology is insane. So then I'll also say, if they say no, right? Sometimes your buyers will have a cap. We all know what our buyers are qualified up to, right? And then also what I do in addition to that, I'll make up a cap, right? So if I'm in a $500,000 price point, or let's just say I can go up to 6, homes listed at 525. I'll put a cap somewhere in between just to get them to let me know where it's at, where their highest offer is. I'll ask them, well, can you share with me, is it like 5% over? Is it 10% over? And then I throw a cap in and I'll say this, hey, just to make sure with this market, it's been pretty crazy, right? Market's hot, there's a lot of multiple offers, and I don't want to waste your time. My buyer has a cap. Do you have any offers? Make a cap, right? So if I'm up to 6, I'll go like 575 or 565 or whatever you want to know. Do you have any offers at 565,000? Because my buyer can't go. Right? Then you get them to tell you where their highest offer is, and a lot of times they'll say yes or no. Now you have an idea of where that offer is at and what that looks like. And you can now go and have discussions with your buyers around that, right? Any questions on this? Questions from the camera? Questions online? No?
If you don't get the response you look for, obviously you've got this checklist here. What's your like Hail Mary? How do you structure it?
My Hail Mary. My Hail Mary is I've asked them, hey, is it 5% over? Is it 10? And then I just go to, okay, hey, I don't want to waste your time. I know you're gonna get more offers in. I also know that it's above asking. My buyer has a cap. You have any offers above 565? And like 99% of the time that works, David. That's a really good question. Really good question. And I just try and squeeze out a range, right? And a lot of times you'll get that range and then you have an idea. But it doesn't stop there, right? I always ask them and I say, cool, we're gonna put together an offer. When are they due? If I know they're due tomorrow. I just say, hey, look, I'd love to check back in with you before you guys submit the offer. Can I give you just a quick call tomorrow? Or give you a call if they're presenting at 4 o'clock. Can I give you a call? I talk to that agent probably 3 or 4 times before I submit my offer. That makes sense? I text them, I call them. And I also, there's a question I didn't put on here. Is there an offer that your clients would just accept? Is there a price? Because if a price doesn't matter, I have a client that has funds and they are maybe tired of looking, or they can go above list price, I just ask them straight up, is there a price that your clients would accept today? I try and cut them off at the open houses, if it listed on Thursday, I try and get an offer in. And I'll call the agent and say, hey, my client loves this, especially if I showed it, guys. If you have a listing, get to it quick, and then try and get it to get cut off before the open house, I always do that. And I'm just saying, is there an offer that your clients would accept? I don't care if you hold the open house open, that's fine, you can hold it for backups or beats, right, that's what open house get. And but we'll be in contract, is that cool? If I give you a great offer, I just ask them that. The other thing is, when you're finding out, I'll show you the creative piece of it coming up on the next slide. Try and get a specific time they plan to review offers. And this wasn't my idea, this was one of our agent partners, Christy, she does a fantastic job at multiple offers, I think she has a record for our team, I think she beat out 54 offers. She said, I always text them right before they're gonna go and present the offers. And I just text the listing agent and I say, hey, I'm making myself available. Should your sellers have any questions about our offers or we need to move it, just call me. So that she's the last person that the listing agent thinks of. She's communicated, she's talked to them. And here's the other thing that happens when you communicate and you don't want to be like annoyingly aggressive, right? There's always fine lines like following up on leads, but you want to be in communication, because if you do so, that agent is going to think of you as being a communicative agent. The process is going to go smooth. They'll probably tell their seller about it, right? Those types of things. So the other thing is, I ask them to commit to calling me before they accept an offer. Hey, can I ask you to commit to calling me before you accept an offer? Yeah, okay, cool. Why? Because if there's something Hail Mary I can do that says, because I've actually had them in a multiple offer situation where the guy called me and said, hey, we got an offer here that is this price, it's above yours, it's better than yours, but we'd be more willing to work with you guys if you can do this. And I just call it back, yeah, I can do that. You want to do this? Yeah, perfect, cool. So huge piece, and probably the most important, is communication with the agent there, right? Asking questions, building rapport, and use good questions and ask questions you probably think you maybe shouldn't, just ask them. I've always had a saying around questions and digging deep on things, is if I think that I shouldn't ask it, is probably the right question to ask. Cool, questions on this? So we're gonna go to the next strategy here. Anybody? Anybody on TV? All right, cool. So step number 2 is your duty in writing the offer. Use the information you learned to write a clean offer. So one way, who's been in the business less than a year?
So less than a year?
Less than a year. Okay, cool. So a lot of us in here. Oh, you didn't.
You're not.
You're not. Okay. How long are you two been?
Going on 15.
Yeah.
Over 20.
Yeah.
Old lady.
21.
Yeah, 2003.
Oh man, gosh. All right. I love it. And so I'm assuming you guys have probably listed a home. One thing for all those people that are newer, one thing for them not to know how new you are, I look up all my offers, just so you know. Someone offers on my property, we have a cool tool where I can see who the agent is, how many deals they've done, what kind of experience I'm working with, especially if I don't know them. But one way for you not to look like new is to fill out an offer completely. You'd be surprised at how many times I'm sitting there looking at this offer, I'm like, this person's brand new, look them up. Not saying it's bad, we all start somewhere, right? But when there's no attention to detail, it makes me think, how's this process gonna go? They didn't pay attention to detail on their offer. They are probably didn't pay attention to detail in doing a buyer consultation. They probably didn't educate their clients on the inspection process. A lot of things go through that, right? Submit a clean offer with all check boxes checked and have somebody on someone else give you a second set of eyes on it, right? when you send terms to an offer not completely filled out, it tells the agent you are new or don't have attention to detail, right? Another thing I do, now, again, this is specific to our team, right? We do a large volume. And so like we literally, every single offer, I'm going, sometimes they don't look at, in fact, Bruce will probably hammer me, you don't want to write, quote, love letters or what are those called, heartstrings? But I put some type of blurb about the buyer in my cover letter. Then I outline the terms of the offer. So what do you write in the terms of the offer? Hey, my client is super clean, stable. I used to be in mortgage, so I used to know what was important to a mortgage. Stable job, right? Time and they have a stable and verifiable job, source of income. They've been on the job 3 years. They have assets. I've attached the assets. They have this, high credit scores, low debt to income ratio. I like put that in a little blurb. And I say, here are the highlights of their offer. So what do I cover? What my listing price is. So if the home's 550 and I'm offering 570, 550, $570,000 list price, 20,000 above asking. I always highlight that. The points of the offer, right? Shorten contingencies, whatever my shortened contingencies are, whether I shorten the inspection period, whether I shorten the appraisal, the loan itself. If you guys don't, all your buyers should be pre-approved. Does everyone know the difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved? No, that's okay. Pre-qualified is I filled out a loan application, put everything I do. I make $5,000 a month. I have $50,000 in assets. I gave them my social, so they can pull credit, and I have a clean rental history or whatever, clean mortgage. Pre-approved is I did all that. The loan officer sent me an email saying, hey, I need your W-2s, your pay stubs, your asset, your bank statements. And basically they review all that information and it's ready to go to underwriting right when I find the property. So there's no concept of, are these people approved? Have they looked at it? In fact, as a listing agent, I call every lender that I get an offer from, and I call them up and I say, hey, tell me about your people. We have a mutual client. They're offering on my property. And I ask them questions like, hey, do they have significant assets? What happens if the appraisal comes in short? Do they have money to cover that? Where are they at with repairs, things like that? So make sure your people are pre-approved, and I put that in there. So then also talk to your lender too. Right now, rates are obviously a little bit elevated. They should be able to move quick on this stuff. What I mean by that is, it used to, in 2021, rates were super low, so there was millions of people refinancing, and the lenders were clogged up with that, and it took longer. They should be able to move quick. So ask your lender every time, whoever the lender is, hey, I'm about to write an offer. What can I do for contingencies on the appraisal? And what can I do for contingencies on the loan? And they'll tell you straight up. I always try and shorten my loan contingencies to 10 days or less. I always try to shorten my appraisal contingency to 10 days or less. Be careful on VA loans. The lender has no control on that. It's all managed by the veteran VA department. And so they kind of mosey out in their sweet ass time, right? It's true.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't even think you can.
I don't know where they go.
And then know your appraisals, too, appraisers. Oh, that's a whole nother conversation. But here's another thing. Is when you submit your offer, send them comps. So if you're gonna go above asking price, right? Either waive the appraisal contingency, which doesn't matter at that point, you don't need to send comps. But if you think there's some comparable properties that can justify the offered price that you're doing, send them some comps on it, educate them. They may not have seen it. They may have seen it. They may not have. I don't know. But send them some comps to justify your thing. If you're going low, send them comps on why you're offering what you are, because if you don't, they just think it's a low ball with no backing behind it. Right? Always train, no matter how long they've been in the business. If someone sends me comps, I'm like, ah, sweet, I didn't see that. Right? Or Okay, that makes sense, why they're, how they view it. I'll probably try and counter back on you with the justify, hey, this, I know you should have sent me this, but here's some others that represent the price that I'm. Your goal, my goal on every offer is to make it so clean. That, and if they had multiple offers, they would hopefully accept mine, or if they didn't have multiple offers, they would just sign it. Right? They would just sign it, like, dude, these, and I've had it where people told me, unfortunately, when I lost out on, I was in an offer for, I think it was 15 other offers. She said, you were the best finance offer. I was in with the Cal HFA program, right? So what's that called? DPA, down payment assistance. So that was kind of a struggle. And on those loans too, guys, I educate the clients or the selling agent. And the reason I do so is just so you know, down payment assistance loans, Cal HAPA, they used to be where they would approve the first, then they would take that approval and they have to send it to Cal HFA for approval on the second, the silent second mortgage. Now, majority of the lenders all do everything in-house, which eliminates that friction and makes things a lot quicker. So some people don't know that. I didn't know it until this year, but being real honest with you, because I don't work a whole lot with the Cal HFA. So make it as clean as possible so they would want to count rate. That's my biggest goal when I'm writing an offer. Shorten up contingencies, things like that. Make sense? Questions? Yeah.
One random question, Christine, will get you in.
Yeah.
What is the difference between pre-approved and fully underwritten?
So that's where the pre-qual versus pre-approved. Pre-approved should be fully underwritten. It's the one and the same. Yeah. And you can call the lender always. Say, hey, did you guys send this underwriting or where they at, right? You pre-approved it, because some lenders will consider pre-approval as I looked at the documents, others will have sent it to pre-approval, they say, I've sent it to underwriting should be giving us a conditional approval. Yeah. So that's a good question, make sure whoever you're using for a lender to ask them, hey, did you guys send this underwriting? Good question.
Something you mark on the contract anyway. Most lenders don't, so you know, because they wait for an offer to come in, but you have the option.
So pre-approval with underwriting approval is your strongest with financing, pre-approval, and then pre-qual. Don't work with pre-qual. All right, agent to buyer. This is a huge one, right? Educate your clients and set expectations. So biggest thing is when I have conversations with my clients, I just tell them straight up, here's what we're up against. Here's our options, right? So I'm gonna educate them on how they can strengthen their offer the most. First thing is I'm going to discuss the appraisal waiver concessions or appraisal gap with your buyer as an option. If we have to go over asking, if they have a significant funds and they don't care what they pay for the house, then we'll go that direction. A lot of people don't though. So you can do a couple things. You can waive the appraisal, right? And there's some tricks in there that I won't talk about because I don't think Bruce will want me to talk about, but there is some things that you can do to kind of trick the listing agent. But for instance, you can also write an appraisal gap. So buyers willing to pay the difference between offered price and appraisal up to X amount, not to exceed purchase price, right? So you put a gap which limits them 10,000, 5,000. That throws a little strength into your offer, right? You get some.
I just want to help make sure the people in the room, I know what it means. But could you use an example of that, an exact example so that they understand what an appraisal gap actually is?
Yeah, 100%.
Because it took me a little bit.
Yeah, good question. And also too, just like that, right there, this is important too, is how I just talked. Someone who is newer to the real estate game might not understand. assume your client understands,
Nothing.
zero. And make sure you explain, don't use our realtor jargon, don't use stuff that they're not gonna know, because they're gonna have no freaking clue. And they're gonna be like, okay, right, and they.
I just want the house, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly,
And then when it comes time to give up that extra 10 grand,
they're out.
remember the appraisal part? No.
So appraisal gap is, let's say, for instance, I have a $500,000 house, I'm offering 500,000. And I say that the buyer is willing and able to offer a $10,000 appraisal gap, not to exceed the offer price. And let's say I get the appraiser out there and he appraises it at like 490. Okay, that gap there is what the buyer will need to come in with additional cash as a closing cost and bring to the closing table to make up that difference. Does that make sense? So what you do is there's an appraisal gap, you max it out. So let's say, for instance, the appraisal came in at 480. Well, I only have a $10,000 appraisal gap, we either A, negotiate down the price, or B, the buyer comes in with more depending on what we can negotiate. You had a question?
So I was just a little confused, so
Sure.
you're saying basically like if the house was listed for like 490 and the appraisal gap was like 480, then you have like 10,000 for them to, would that be the 10,000 for the buyer to spend?
Yeah, so I was doing an example, so let's say I offered 500,000. And for me to keep in within terms of the LTVs, the terms of the loan, it would have to appraise at 500,000 for there to be no issues. But, well, let's say the appraiser's like, dude, you're crazy, this shit ain't worth 500,000, we're bringing in 490. Right, and they give you an appraised value at 490,000. That's where the buyer, the difference between what you offered and what the home actually is appraised for, they have to come in with that gap. Does that make sense?
Cash gap.
Cash gap, yep,
Make sure it's cash gap, you can't be built into the loan.
yeah, it's it would be additional monies that
You
they
bring
would
it
have
to the
to.
table.
But the thing is, by putting an appraisal, if you waive the appraisal entirely, what happens is it doesn't matter what that house appraised for, they're technically required to come in with that difference. No, not to say that there's another thing you get out of it for,
Oh,
but
you can, but not.
yeah,
The tricks of the trade.
but yeah, but. So say it came in at 470, you have an offer at 500, and speaking of devil, Bruce, you have an appraisal gap of, or you waive the appraisal home, so you put an offer of 500,000 and appraised for 470. That's a gap of 30 grand that buyer would have to come in for the.
I've had that happen.
I have to.
And you better hope they negotiate.
I've had a client who didn't care,
Oh,
and she came in with an additional $150,000.
oh. Okay.
So the loan basically only covers what it's appraised for?
Yes,
Correct.
purchase
Yep.
price or appraised value, whatever is left.
You really have to pay attention to that right now, because so many people were overpaying for properties how many years ago, and it sucked up a lot of that equity.
Yep, exactly.
If
You
you
gotta-
don't
you gotta
have
live-
that.
And another thing too, as part of this, is make sure you're pulling comps, well, actually it's a requirement now to send your entire comparable properties. And I just say straight up to them, I have the conversation, hey, here's the deal. I talked to the listing agent, they have offers at 470. We would have to go above that. Looking at comparable properties, I bet this would appraise somewhere in the 450, 460, which would require you to make up that gap. Can you do that? Or are you willing to do that?
Mhm.
No, all right, then this isn't the right property for us to offer.
Can you run it back to how it applies to the offer contract now that we understand what you actually mean?
Yeah, well, so how's up?
Because you were saying like you write it
Mhm.
X amount
Yeah.
to not, can you run that back?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can either, there's a section on the offer where you can check mark the box where you waive your appraisal contingency. That's if you do full contingency. You can, then I put it in other terms, and I will just write something to the effects of buyers willing to do an appraisal gap of $10,000. Should the property not appraised at the offered purchase price. Then I put behind it, not to exceed
Not to exceed.
offered purchase price. And if you need help with how to word it, I mean, you guys are in here, so you got
Yeah,
Bruce.
just come to us, we'll tell you. It's another term. It's pretty simple.
Alright, so LTV too, that's another thing, they have a large down payment, just have that conversation. Right, I understand you're trying to put down 90% or 20%. This is a competitive situation where you're probably gonna need to offer more. And if you look at going from 80% to 90% LTV, loan to value, is part of the financing equation. So whenever you go above 80%, you have what's called mortgage insurance. It's an insurance protection policy for the lender, because as you go higher on your LTVs, or you finance more against what the home's worth, it becomes a more risky loan for the lender. And they require a policy that should something happen, you foreclose, whatever, they're actually covered and they get paid out on that, okay? So, but what happens is, depending on how much you're going above 80%, depending on what your credit score is, and some other things will determine how much you pay. So here's the thing that's cool about going above 80%. Let's say, for instance, I have, and I'll just use super simple numbers. Let's say it's $500,000, right? So I'm gonna offer 500, I'm putting 20% down. That means that I'm gonna have a loan for 400,000. Does that make sense? That's 20% down, right? 10% is 50, another 10's 100. And let's say I want to get aggressive and offer whatever amount I want, and the appraisal doesn't come in. What I can actually do is up my LTV, my loan amount. And let's say I go to 85, let's say 90% LTV, that's not that expensive. In fact, what would you say on that, Marissa?
Sorry.
90% LTV on a $500,000 loan, what would that be, an extra $120, $140-ish?
Not very much.
It's not that much.
Yeah.
So you can then essentially go be aggressive on your offer. If the appraisal comes in short, I wish I had a board to write it, I draw it out.
There's
There's a thing right there.
There might be a, here, I got it, doesn't.
No.
I got it. There might be a stand.
This, because it'll help you visualize this a little bit better.
Might be a stand. Does you say?
Yeah.
Again, you're right.
Sure.
We gotta go around, I'm sure it's.
Let me go grab one.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna go do something.
There you go. Well, then you, no, you won't. Yep.
Let's just do it. We need a posted stand, guys. Where's the love at? See,
There you go.
yeah. All right. To help you understand this a little bit. And I know you can't see it on TV, I'm sorry.
If you move over a little tiny bit, more this way, you'll be able to see it.
Sure.
My way, yeah, like right there, you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, let's see. All right, this is super janky, so I apologize, but we're gonna try and make this work here. All right, I think I got it. Maybe now. All right, so LTV is determined by how much they're borrowed. Does everyone know what LTV is, loan to value? Anybody know? Yeah?
Yeah.
You all know? Okay, cool. But do you know how it works?
You can throw numbers at me. I have my system up too.
So I'll just give you, so I could say a 500,000 purchase price, right? 80% would be 400. Okay, that means this would be a loan amount. What this represents is amount borrowed against value of the home. Right? So 90% would be 450. Okay. Now, the reason they require mortgage insurance is if you look at the difference between 400K to what the home's worth. Let's say they have to foreclose, they're gonna lose money, right? They're gonna have a gap there of 100. Now here, let's say you borrow 90%, they have to foreclose or something happens to the house. There's only a gap of 50, so it's more of a risk. Mortgages are all based on risk. Now, what I'm saying is, let's say you offer 500,000 and you're at 20% down, okay? That means you're at 400. Oh no. Where this gives you flexibility is, let's say, for instance, the house appraises for 470, right? What's 470 or 400 divided by 470 versus? Huh?
85%.
Yeah, okay, so now your LTV goes from 80 to 85, and it probably costs them about $90 a month for mortgage insurance. So you can still have the same loan amount, relatively same payment, 90, and they're protected if the appraisal comes in low. Does that make sense, y'all?
Yeah.
If it doesn't, say no, because this shit's hard. That's it?
I think you throw when you put in the appraisal. When you put in,
Basically, let's here, let me do this. I apologize. Let's say the home's listed at 475. Okay. We have to be, it's competitive. And let's say my borrower's putting down 20% of whatever value they are, right? But we have to be competitive too. So we put an offer at 500,000. Do you follow me so far?
Mhm.
Okay, so we go 25K above asking. All right, cool. Now, let's say that this listing agent was spot on. They're like, this is worth 475, but because of the competition, we had to offer more, right? Make sense? You all follow me? Cool. And then let's say we go through the approval process and we get the house appraised, and let's say it appraises. At 475. Okay. Now, when we offered it 500,000, my buyer, remember my buyer has how much percent down?
20.
20%. That means they have a loan amount of 400. Okay.
You would be able to go up to a loan amount of 451,000, Jake.
You know, appraisal amount down to
If the
450.
appraised value.
Yeah. So now the home appraised at 475. Now, when they had 20% down with no mortgage insurance, everything else stays the same, except they just add whatever the mortgage insurance is. Because they had so much money down, they had 20%. Take what's 475 divided by, or 400 divided by 475?
I said divided by, I'm not.
Yeah, no worries. What's that equal? Okay. So they went from an 80% LTV with no MI, which is mortgage insurance, to an 84% LTV with MI. So basically, because the appraisal came down low, this gap here is this loan amount is 84% of 475, where it used to be 80% of 500. Y'all follow me on that? So now they can still do the financing because they qualify up to 95% loan to value. I don't want to confuse you there, but they qualify for a higher LTV. The only thing that's gonna change is they can keep their loan amount the same, 400,000, but now they're just gonna add a small mortgage insurance premium policy. For this at 84%, you're probably, how much?
$79 difference.
$79 difference in payment. But they get the house,
If they get the house.
they get the house. Does that make sense, y'all? A little bit?
Yes.
I talk to my clients and I really educate myself, so I would educate yourselves on the mortgage program. Talk to her, she will do a session with y'all, maybe even a group
Yeah.
session, to kind of explain this at a deeper level. But I talk to my clients about that, hey, we're good. You're at 80, let me ask you a question, worst case scenario, if you had to add an extra $79 to your payment to get this house, would you be willing to do it?
Mhm.
No money out of pocket, technically, right? No additional funds out of pocket than what you're already expecting, however, this is what would happen. Make sense, y'all?
Yes.
Sorry to,
I'm lost is how you, how that, where you write that in offer, how that comes later on.
Oh,
go ahead. You guys
no,
say,
you go ahead.
no, go
You're the
for it.
teacher.
I will participate.
Well. Well, okay, so let me ask you this. Have you already submitted the offer?
Yes.
Okay. So you're not gonna be writing it in the contract.
Okay. That's where I was lost.
It's a conversation.
That's a conversation I have with my buyer.
The conversation you have the buyer and with the lender together, hopefully, the same page.
Yeah,
Because you
100%.
need the lender's buy-in, right? And then it's a conversation you're gonna have with the listing agent if you have to.
If you have to.
If you have
Now,
to,
if you have a buyer that's 95% LTV already, this shit's out the window,
doesn't
right?
matter.
Gosh, man, that's what's best, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. But, right, that conversation's a little bit out the window, so, but this is conversation I have on that second point, educate the client on loan to value, so that they can understand what could happen, and if they're willing to do it, because it actually helps.
This is just how they can still get the house if the appraisal comes back left. They
Yeah.
don't write like, oh, shoot, I can't afford it.
Right.
Yeah, there's no appraisal gap at this point.
No.
There's no conversation, just how they gonna pay for that extra 25 grand?
Discuss contingencies with your buyer. They should know what every contingency means. When I do a buyer consultation, I actually pull out a sample contract. I highlight every portion of the contract that could make their offer stronger or less attractive to a seller. And I just explain it to them. Here's this contingency, here's this contingency, this is what this does. Ahead of time, so when it's time for me to write the offer, boom, I got it dialed in, right? So make sure you're educating them. My contingencies, so they added some new contingencies to the offer. There's review of title, there's review of disclosures, and there's review of one more. If you read how it's worded, it says 5 days or 17 days after, right? I shorten all my contingencies on those particular ones to 5. It gives them 5 days after they receive the documents. And it takes it away from that 17-day period. I always make anyone offering on my properties to do so as well, because I don't want them to be able to pull out in 17 days after they've done.
Oh,
all
it's too
their
late,
contingencies.
too late,
It's,
way too late.
yeah, it's way too late. So shorten those. Offer to pay for any needed repairs. Educate the buyer on how competitive and talk to them about inspections. Send them samples. Whenever I have a buyer contract, an automatic email goes out. I've systemized a lot of things, and it's me on camera talking about, hey, congratulations, you're in contract. Here's what happens next. The inspections we are most likely going to do is going to be home, pest, roof, and if your home falls within an older home or needs some other things that your agent pointed out, we'll do those inspections. Well, I've linked those inspections below so you can see them. Here's the thing, guys. If you don't send them an inspection, and when I send them inspections, I have the absolute worst inspections I could possibly have sent to them. So when they get their shit back, they're like, oh man, ours is. good
Jake, you
condition."
said he went from previous,
Correct. I just
that's
write the
gross.
names up, yep, write the names
No
up.
kidding, that's
I'm
smart.
sorry I would have done that, cause I'm closing and like the husband was on board, the wife was like, oh no, and I'm like, okay. It's so hard, it was so hard.
It is, because those inspectors, they
It
have to
works.
do it, they have to do it because they have to protect themselves, right? But they make the house look like it's falling down. They should just clear this house out, start new, right? Like, it's crazy. So make sure you educate them on that. And then I also talk to them when I'm in a buyer consultation. And I put this in my intro email as well, when I'm sending an offer over. Hey, I've actually gone through inspections and what they look like with my buyers. I've educated them on the process. So you can be assured that we're not gonna ask for a bunch of crazy things, right? I let them know that.
Hopefully,
Hopefully, well, I mean, if a roof comes up, I mean, it's like, sorry.
yeah, or
That
plumbing or
that
electrical.
email's out the window. But yeah, send them samples and if it's in multiple offer, think about it. Seller has 10 offers. If I'm selling my house and someone comes to me with some BS request for repairs, I'm like, either take the house as is or I'll go get the other offers.
Yeah.
In addition to that, it offends the sellers. I mean, real honest. They get a ticky-tack list. Once I see in a request for repair, addendum, C overflow addendum, I'm like,
Oh,
shit.
Like, oh man.
Yeah,
Right,
you know
let's
what?
see what's
Deal
this.
I don't even look,
Perspective, do
Deal
you
with it.
ask your clients, like, do you prepare them? I know I do on the listing and say, hey, these are little things that you can take care of right now.
Right now.
When they do their inspection, it's gonna be riddled with all these little upkeep, real simple fixes, and we could prevent all of that, like that.
I say, hey, let's do a pest, let's do a roof, let's do the majors, right? So
Mhm.
prepare for that. And I just let them know. Usually my clients, they just, 3 Cs. Clear, concise, confidently, right? If you can explain things in that manner, present things in that manner, they just kind of listen to you.
Yep.
sure,
And they respect your expertise, but yes, 100%, that's a great idea. When from a listing perspective is, hey, but I don't want my guys changing out GFCIs. If someone asks for GFCI, come
No, I'm
I'm
not
saying,
saying.
right?
Not saying.
That's crazy.
Jake, do you send the home inspections, just before they have their home inspections? When do you send
Right,
those?
and-
Right when it goes pending?
And it's a video page, this is DaRosa. Hey, congratulations, super excited for you. Here's what's gonna happen next.
Very well.
I've always been a proponent and a fan of here's what happens next, to let them know exactly what they
Absolutely.
expect, so, yeah.
Okay.
Offer
Hey.
payment. Yeah, go ahead.
Jay, really quick, those videos that you do, I don't know, maybe I can chat with you afterwards as to like what stages you do those videos, what they look like. That's something
Yeah.
I'd love to implement on both sides.
I use so this is a pretty relatively inexpensive program. It can be used for a lot of different things. It's called highnote.io. Highnote.io. It creates a static web page for you. So what I do is I record a video, I put it onto Vimeo or YouTube, and then I take that link, put it into my high note, so they click it, they watch a video of me, and then this allows you to attach documents below it. I attach a pest, I attach a home inspection, and that happens once we go pending.
What's it called, Jake? I'm sorry.
High note, HIGHNOTE.io. And it's $29 a month.
And it works with YouTube? Which way does it go? Sorry.
You could just put a link of YouTube and it creates a static link. So they can literally be on your high note and push play and it'll play the video, which I would really like.
I just did
I shoot you my link.
a vendor list on that,
Yeah,
and I share it with clients.
I have my pre-listing presentation. I have, when I set a buyer appointment, I have a whole buyer consult, information I send out. I have a lot. It's so diverse. You should buy it. It's really a good program.
Can you
Tell them I have-
talk offline more about that, please?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Next one, escalation clauses. All right, did anybody know what escalation clause is? Has anybody seen an escalation clause? I've actually seen them, I'm surprised.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Oh,
Have you?
Yep.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything. There's certain agents that use
They're
it.
coming back.
Oh, they are.
All right, escalation clause is you put into your contract that the buyer will offer $1,000 above the highest offer.
Not to exceed.
I don't use that, that's the thing I don't do, is I don't use an exceed. Because here's what. You give them your number,
You've already
so
given
not
them
to
the-
exceed 550, right, that's your highest number. If you leave it open and it's a multiple offer situation, they still have to multi-counter you, you have to accept it. Does that make sense? So it doesn't even matter if you put a cap on it, because if they send you a multi-counter, and let's say they have a 559 offer. Your seller's max was 550, you know that, but you don't put a cap in there, they come back at 560, at least you gives you the opportunity to talk to your buyer on it, plus you don't have to accept it. And it shows the cards of them, because they don't have to show you the other offer if you put a cap on it. They just say, hey, here's our offer back. Make sense?
So you're, yeah, now that you put it that way. I got it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, seriously.
your cards away.
So they have to counter
You have to multi-counter, countering that.
if you put an escalation clause.
If it's a multiple, I wouldn't put an escalation clause in on the, when it's not multiple offer situation, but if it's a multi-offer situation, they
Yeah.
have to counter you, you have to solidify a price.
Well,
I talked to Bruce on it.
That's like,
that's the part that I was
That's
missing.
like
I
playing-
didn't know they had.
that's like playing
necessarily do
poker and
that.
showing your hand.
Yeah,
So
learning something new as a listing agent too, right?
Oh,
Right?
yeah, I know they
Yeah.
have counting.
this is a cool one I like to do. Is one thing that I love, that my sellers love to do is, and if you're moving, what do you always want to do? You want to leave your shit behind, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Right? You know what my junk hauler costs? He cleaned out 1,000 square foot home for me, full of stuff, $800.
Yep.
So offer in your thing, it's gonna cost you anywhere from $300 to $500. Just say, whatever seller doesn't want, trash, seller can leave in the garage and leave behind.
In the garage, that's the operative word.
You
Not
can
on-
choose anywhere,
Not
but
on the
I would
property,
say
not
find-
all over the property, but in the
Yeah,
garage.
leave whatever the seller does not want to take with them, trash, whatever.
I need your hauler number.
Yeah.
Because
Cheap.
think about it, if I'm selling a house, I don't wanna move my stuff, if I don't have to hire a junk hauler, or I don't have to do. Now, if you're buying a frickin', order house, I mean, that's
It's a different
different story, but,
See what you get.
then I also got shortened all contingencies to 5 days or less, and those are my main things, how to get your offer accepted. We run about an 84% offer acceptance rate on our team. So and what
I
that
love that
does,
you know that number. You mentioned that in the meeting too. I was like, that's
Yeah.
awesome that you know that, the numbers.
we kick ass. And the thing that's cool about it too, is I can say that, know your numbers, because that's your value prop. When I'm meeting with a buyer, hey, you could go with some agent that doesn't know what they're doing, right? Or you can work with us, and we have I created a 33-point offer acceptance plan. So I'm able to say at an open house, hey, let's sit down and talk about our 33 offer acceptance plan, and also how we're able to get our clients into contract. We have an 84% acceptance rate, right?
I need to know.
Is that a top secret 33-point plan?
It is.
Yeah, he's not gonna give it to you, David.
But I'll tell you this, David, majority.
Hey, Leslie, he mentioned to ask the questions you don't think you should ask, so I'm just asking the questions I don't think I should ask.
That's a great point. And actually, a lot of this stuff's on here. We just have there's a lot of things I didn't put on here that are team specific, right? Like, for instance, in our offer email, I have been fairly successful in real estate. And so I make sure at the very footer of it, I say, please look up our transactions and past transactions. You'll see we do a high volume of sales and we get things closed. And then I put my MLS DaRosa, I have them put theirs. So our partners on our team put theirs, and they also use my number too. So the listing agent can look up our information. So that's like some different things we do. There's
Say that
probably-
again? How do you do that? I
So
don't know that trick.
Well, I can, if you send me an offer,
Yeah,
I'm gonna Google your name, or not Google, I'm gonna go into MLS. I'm gonna click on sold, and I'm gonna go back 1 year, okay? Then I'm gonna go down to where it says to pick the agent, I'm gonna pull up your name,
me too, Sharon.
and I'm gonna get you your agent ID, and I'm gonna look and see how many homes you've sold, so I know what type of agent I'm working with.
No kidding.
Yep,
You teach me that, I don't know how to do
I
that.
do that all the time.
After all these years, I never knew how to do that.
Yeah,
No.
so if you have like an agent who sold one property,
Not gonna happen.
well, I'm not gonna,
Does it include-
I'm not gonna, again, I tell my sellers again, I get a good feel. And this is why it's so important, the communication piece, I get a good feel of the agent just from talking with them.
Yeah.
And everyone started, and I tell my sellers, everyone started somewhere. You know,
That's
just
right.
because they don't have the sales. Now, if it's an agent that's been in the business for, 10 years and they have like 2 sales to their name, then I know they're not that good of agent, right? But if it's someone who's been in this, I see a 022, right, as a license number. And they don't have that, so, okay, cool, they're starting out, maybe they're a hustler, I don't know, I'm gonna talk to them and find out though.
Sure.
But if they send you a clean offer with all the
Just-
boxes checked. you're
just
like,
the
And they
let's
took their
go.
class, and I'm like, let's roll.
Let's go.
Does it show your buyers and your, oh.
Yeah, listings and sold.
Okay.
So, questions, what questions you have? What other questions?
I've already learned so much.
This was really informative.
Yeah.
For me.
Good,
Oh, no.
if you thought it was informative, do me a favor,
Oh, no.
throw me on social, just say, gee, it was a great class.
Big profits.
I would love that, my tag me, my social is @Jake_DaRosa, DaRosa.
What is your biggest pet peeve as a listing agent when you get offers?
Not complete.
I would say it's probably. I got a few.
You have time?
So I think my favorite one was, my biggest one the last year was I had a fixer, you maybe even showed it, saw it. I don't know, is everyone still on Zoom?
Yeah.
Can
Did
you
you
guys
hear
see
him on
me?
Zoom?
Alright, hold on, did they go away?
I'm not touching anything. Hold on.
Yeah, still always touching technology.
So I had a listing, this last year that was model match and sold at 380,000 around the corner, upgraded, updated, all the stuff. And it was a situation where we had to go through the eviction court process. The brother was literally, squatting in his mom's house, which was terrible. I felt so bad for him, but we got him out. So this house needed a new roof, new HVAC. And it had been smoked in and it needed to be pumped. So like literally the top 4 things you could have. So I put it on the market at 280. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. I had over 120 showings.
I remember this one.
Yeah, you
I
saw
remember
me.
this one.
Yeah, you may even talk to me.
I did. I did talk to you.
I got blown up, right? And then the funniest part was I have a lady, I said, we're gonna be looking at offers on Tuesday. I have an agent who sends me below the price I listed at and demanded that I give her an answer.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, yeah, the answer is no.
Just no.
But that was funny. Biggest pet peeve though is just really, really shitty offers. And when I say that, they didn't put any thought into it. They didn't check the boxes. I have to counter back, like I've seen where they come back, there's like no COE, close of escrow. Like, dude, when you wanna close this, just simple,
Did you miss that?
basic stuff
Yeah.
that should be looked at, and then they don't even call it, just fire off blind offers. That's the other thing is, I love the offers where they haven't seen the house. I actually check my lock boxes.
Me too.
To see if they showed the house.
Me too.
And then there's also those companies that fire off blind offers, that's annoying too. Where you
So you
go,
get the exit, oh,
exit as is that it?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
So-
Every one of my listings, I get one.
But I mean, for the most part, here's the thing. Is I just take the position personally, everyone started somewhere, we all were new at one point. I actually went through a transaction where I coached the other buying agent through the process. she was contingent on selling their house, and I talked to her about the pricing on it and just helped her out. And it came out to be a great transaction, so.
That's cool. I think
Yeah,
that-
I think we ought to remember that too, is we all started somewhere, unless they intentionally are trying to be
Stupid.
nasty or dirty or something like that. I've had those agents, those are typically your seasoned ones, right? I try and get a win-win, and communication is huge, communication is huge. So, what other questions?
So realistically,
Yeah.
in a multiple offer situation, if we're doing all this and you see a 0 to 2 year, not just gonna be like realistic.
I personally wouldn't, if you have a good conversation with me and I've talked to you and you could call your lender, and that's the other thing is lenders don't call me back, that's my
Me
probably
too,
my
pet
number one,
peeve.
number one. Because if the lender's not calling me back, then
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
that's
Yes,
how
like that
the,
nightmare.
yes.
So
It's
Yeah,
gonna be a
like that.
nightmare.
yeah. But to be, I mean, like I said, realistically, it depends on how you show up. I think that's the key to it. If you show up in a way that would want me to work with you, then I'll work with you. Let's rock, let's go, right?
And then her original question, which was out of all of that, what's your number one?
The communication with the agent.
Yeah.
Because you gotta establish that relationship and you've gotta let them know that you're the one.
And
And you're
call,
picking up the
don't
phone.
text,
Yeah.
call.
Text,
Picking
the only
up the
time I
phone.
text is to get them to call me back.
Exactly,
If I call them, hey, it's Jake DaRosa, boom.
Call me back.
yeah.
Okay, here's the thing, guys, I'll tell you this, for all of y'all that have been in here, I'll just say in less than 3 years. Do good, take this seriously, and you will create a reputation for yourself. Once you have a reputation, things happen differently, right? I can call up a lot of agents right now and find probably an off-market listing that they'd be willing to do a deal with me on. I can call up favors. They can call up on favors on me. I owe people, they owe me, right?
Mhm.
But it's just a matter of do people right and be a good agent, right? Invest your time. I would say the other thing that's huge with being with buyers, know your contract. Read it 20 times. I see it as a tool belt, right? You got your hammer, that's your hammer. You need to know your contract. I get asked questions all the time about contract. I'm like, what's it say in paragraph H, 3 each, I, whatever, I don't know anymore because they change it so much, it'll change it.
I just
Just
like
like
that.
it.
It's going
It's gonna
to
change
change
again.
again.
But know
Yeah.
it, right, understand it, know what your options are, read it, what happens if this happens, and then, probably 2 is being that you're newer, if you don't know something. Ask someone, but also let your people that you're working with know, hey, you know what, I'm pretty certain on this, but let me make sure I got the 100% right answer, and then also.
Mhm.
I still do that to this day, I learn stuff every single day. Every single.
I really lean on my transaction coordinator. And Bruce,
And
Yes.
Bruce,
I do.
Our partners on the team,
I'll,
everyone's
I sit in
experienced
that
different
office maybe, a couple times a week and I learn so much every day just listening to
yeah,
it. Seriously,
right.
listening to the conversation, listening to like, wow.
So I would definitely consider. Anyone, the numbers, it just lets me know. Like I'm old school, right, I got like 017, and my 017 isn't even that old, because I didn't get licensed till I started my mortgage brokerage back in 08. So I started the business in 02, but I didn't have to be licensed for the mortgage company. You know, they changed all that, I don't know if you guys know, they require ML. Loan officers now have real estate license, you
Yeah.
didn't necessarily have to, or you have to have your MLO. What other questions? You guys are quiet over here.
Question,
Yeah,
how many deals did you make in your first year?
my first year,
Mhm.
28. Yeah,
Which company were you with?
codes.
Oh.
Yeah, well, actually,
The one and only.
yeah, and that was during short sale times too, so that was pretty good.
That's pretty
Because-
good.
Like, I always tell people, what's funny about the short sale days is you felt like you were winning, but you weren't. So I could have 5, 6, 7 in contract. And they weren't gonna close for 9 to 12 months because I had to get a short sale. So it was crazy. So it felt like you were winning. but you didn't pay.
long sales, not short sales.
Longest, I think everyone has a
Short one.
different lid, right? I personally, for all you ladies in here, only meet you, and then I'll put it on TV. y'all have a much, I feel like a bigger capacity. I don't know why that is, maybe because
For moms.
it's
Yeah,
moms,
kids.
right?
Just femininity.
Yeah, it could be, like, my lid is 46, so I did 46 deals in my biggest year, which is fairly decent. And that was, I didn't have an assistant, I utilized transaction coordinator, and I found all my deals, right? So that was my biggest year of real estate. But everyone's gonna have a different lid, right? Everyone's gonna have a different cap, everything you handle, depends on what's going on in your house. Prioritize is probably the biggest thing in this industry. Prioritize your time. Who you let into your world. You got these lenders actually go lunch. I don't know, forget those lenders. You don't wanna go lunch with them. No, but you know what I'm saying, like copy this, copy that, next thing you know, your time's all filled up. What do you got over here? Questions? Before I take off, you
I don't
guys.
have any questions, but you're really good at your scripts. I'm on Play, so I see your scripts all the time.
Oh, are you? Which one?
I'm with DaRosa.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Thanks for coming. Okay. Right on. That's awesome. Yeah, scripts are important too. She's been really, they probably practice scripts quite a bit. Common communication is probably the biggest piece of this business. Getting good at communicating, right? Getting good at asking questions. Assume nothing. Assume nothing. You assume that crushes everything, right? Why do I say that? It's just, there's so many assumptions that can be made about everything, right? I'll give you an example. You ready for this? This is my favorite example. I should have made it real long, but I really love it. We signed a $1.2 million listing. Okay, Robert on our team, fantastic. Him and Michael partnered up on it. They would sign that listing the other week. They worked up net sheets for him, right there, listing equipment, all that. And she was concerned with the commission being charged, the fee. And so Michael handled that objection, 3% on that listing. And not saying that that's set in stone, it was definitely negotiable. And she called a week later and she says, I'm still really concerned. So I actually went back out to the house. And what's interesting is she didn't realize the net sheet had her mortgage already taken out of it. So she thought she still had to take out her mortgage. So there's like $300,000 difference. I'm like, bro, you should have just said, hey, no problem. Cut it in half. I will only charge you $150 on this, right? But it was very interesting to see, assume.
Yeah.
We could very well assume that she was just talking about the 3, but she was really talking about
The amount.
difference.
The amount.
$200-something, $300,000. So assume that, and a lot of people don't know, especially work with older sellers, they haven't sold a house since 1960 when they bought theirs, right? Assume nothing, ask questions. And the best thing you can ask is, tell me more about that. Tell me more.
Tell me more.
That's it.
And not what, use why. Why do you feel it? Not what. It's more,
I would, why? I like the questions. I would say what specifically.
well, yeah, you have to get down to it. Yes.
Anything else? Anything else, Joe?
How and when can we access this slide?
Huh?
How and when can we access these?
I'll get that for you.
Like,
somebody.
whenever you go to talk to it.
I'll send it to the front desk, someone in the clerk's office.
Do you follow the YouTube channel?
No, so that's what I meant, so YouTube.
That's where we post most
We
of our
post a
stuff.
lot of
Yeah.
stuff on there.
And I'll send those slides over.
Yeah, we'll have the office send out the slides themselves as a PDF through email.
Anything else? Anything else?
Mm-mm.
We good?
Good
All right.
job,
Thank you all.
Jake.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.